Hello and welcome to taik18, and this is the continuation series of project Takmeel, where in this video we are going to discuss about the SQL Server. So far we have covered about the project management, project requirement and DevOps also, and from now we are going to discuss about the SQL Server and how we need to proceed further in this project. If you haven't subscribed for this channel, please do subscribe about this channel to get the latest updates from my channel. And also, if you like this project concept, please share this video with others so that they can also learn something from this series. So now let's get started. So before going into in detail, so what are the things which we are going to cover today is about the general overview of the SQL Server and how we need to create a database and also how to create a table. And there are other things which I am going to cover in this video also. Please stay tuned till the end of this video so that you can learn everything in detail. So this is a SQL Server and Management Studio here. So I'm not going to cover how you need to install this SQL Server because that's a different process. I'll share you this description on this video about the link where you can download the SQL Server. There are three versions of SQL Server: Developer, Standard and Enterprise. So Developer is completely free, and also there is Express editions also there where you can use it for your test environment, and the developer environment is similar to the enterprise model, but it is not used when you are going to deploy it onto a real production. So either you can buy officially and standard license or an enterprise license for that. So here what I have is a developer license where I can have all the functionality of the enterprise SQL Server, and for the testing purpose only I am doing this, so I can able to use this. So you need to install two things. One is the SQL Server that will install the engine of the SQL Server. It's also install the integration services, SQL Server reporting services and also analysis services. So as of now I have installed only a few of them, not the entire thing. And then you need to also install this Management Studio. I'm going to also add the description of the download link of the Management Studio. You need to use that because initially when Microsoft used to launch the SQL Server, they used to launch the Management Studio as well as SQL Server, both of them in one single package. But recently they have separated it because we can connect to different sources in the Management Studio, and also they have launched Azure Data Studio as well, where we can also connect to our local machine, also their database which is on the cloud. So they have two separate things. You need to install two separate things. Right now I am in SQL Server Management Studio where I have just connected to my local server, and if I expand this, it shows about the system database snapshot and the other database which I have already added into my server. So now if you want to create a new database, you can just right click on the database and then go to new database. There are also scripts also is there where you can use the script to create a database, but the easiest way as a beginner, you can just use this menu option itself. Here I'm going to give it name here as project Takmeel, and the owner it can be default one. And here under the general tab we have the logical name which is project Takmeel. And then there are two file types which you have. One is a rows data and the log files. So whatever the data which you are going to store, it's going to store on this file, and the logs, whatever the transaction which SQL Server need to store the informations, that going to store on this file. So here we have option of the initial size and auto growth, how you need to grow on that, and also the local path, so where you want to keep this database. So it is not recommended to add this onto C drive because if something happens to your Windows operating system, then everything will wash away, right? So it is better to save it on a different drive. So I'm going to add it into a different location where E drive. I can just copy and paste the address of this one, and then we have option of other option which is options. Here we can see the other options like the collections, recovery model to be full, bulk, large or simple. I will select to be full here, and the compatibility. So right now the version which I have installed is 2019, and we have also previous versions if you want. And also about containment type, which we have is none or partial. And there are other options which we have it here. If you want to know in detail about these options, please let me know in the comment section below. I will try to cover these in-depth things into other video series, not on this one, in a separate video series. Okay, so I will keep the default options whatever it has in these options also. Another file group, so we are not going any kind of file groups here, so I will keep as it is. So that's it, and then here you need to click on OK. So here also we have option about script. So if you just click on this one and script action to a new query window, if I click on this one, it's going to create a script and add it into Management Studio as a new window. So here it has created this one, and you can see create database project Takmeel, and this is the location, and these are all the things which it is going to update on the database thing. So these are all the script it has generated automatically, and if you want to use this one you can run this, but make sure you have selected this here in the drop down master as an available database. But I prefer to go with this menu itself, so I will click on OK. Now let's go into Object Explorer, where you can see this project Takmeel. So the database is now created, and the next thing is we need to create a table. So if I expand this one, these are the options which comes up here, and here we have option of tables. So if you expand this one, it's going to load some default tables which is useful for inside activity of this database. If you want to create a new one, you just need to click on the tables, right click the tables here, new, and then tables. Even tables also we can make use of the T-SQL query statement to create a table, but I want to go with the usual way, which is this way. So let's switch it to OneNote. So before creating the table, I want to go through these columns which we are going to add into a table. So why we need that? Though the serial number is first is actually the primary key, it's auto generated number key which we are going to add. So I will keep this as auto, and the mode is basically, so like we discussed in the earlier of this one, the get entry, the project which we are going to do it here. So the mode is basically whether the goods is coming in or it's going out. So we need to set this as a bool, which is true or false, and we are setting it as if it is 0 then it is in, if it is 1 then it is out. So true or false is basically it stores the value as 0 or 1. So we'll consider 0 as in and 1 as out. And the receipt date is, so when we have received this thing, and then we also have a dispatch date, right? So what we can do here is our reference date. So I will just rename it here, our receipt or dispatch date. So I'll just give it a short name, receipt or dispatch date, received or dispatch date. It should be a date and time, and it is not null. So these are the three things which you need to keep. So let's go back here. We have column name, data type, and allow null. So that's what I have created here as a three different columns: column name, data type, and allow null. And then we have the reference number. To avoid wasting of the time, let me just do it right away one by one, and also I will explain it at the same time. So how can I do that? Let's open the classic ribbon, because sometimes it's difficult to find where all those options are. Here we have option about always on top in the OneNote. I really like the OneNote, how it is working fine. If you want me to do a complete video series of OneNote, I really love to do that. Even in future also I'm planning to do that about why I switch everything to OneNote. This is really an amazing thing. So if you want me to do a video, please let me know in the comment section below. I will try to make a video on this as well. So this is always on top, and then now I'm setting it to be dock to desktop. So now it is docked to the right side. Now I can work smoothly on the two sides as well. So this is serial number. So I will double click on the column sections as a serial number, and then this should be integer, and here it's allow null. So only for the few initial columns I will give you this how we need to do that. So this is the serial number, and integer is the data type, and if the list goes big, if you're thinking about the list goes big, then you need to select the big int for that. So before to that, there are multiple data types are there, like the text is a data type, number is data type, and date and time is a data type. So likewise bit is also a data type, and decimal. So there are many things here. You can just check out into the SQL Server website about what are the data types which we have, and then how we can use that. So here I'm going to use big int as a safer side because it stores a large number of data. And here at the bottom you have this column properties, right? Here we have option of allow null equal to yes. So actually I don't want this to be allow null, so I had to avoid the tick. Now it's switched to no here, and big int. Now if I scroll down, we have this identity specification. Let me just click here. If I expand this one, is is identity. So whether it is asking about this auto generated ID column, I need to set this to yes, and here it is opening two options. One is identity increment, another is identity seed. So what is the starting point and how we need to increment one by one row? So I'm going it to be 1 and 1. It will start from 1 and it will increase the value 1 1 1 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. Okay, so now this is done, and if I click on allow null, it gives me the message about allow null property cannot be set on a column serial number because it is an identity column, because it's auto generated number, right? So we don't have option to set this to be allow null. I mean, we can't able to insert this allow null value because it is auto generated number. Okay, so what is the next one? So the next one is basically, let me zoom out here, is a mode, which is a bit here, and I will select to be mode here and set this to be bit. Or bit is also similar kind of boolean. Bit just stores 0 1 value, and this boolean is true or false, so I will just set it to be bit itself and then click on allow null to be false, and after that we have rec dispatch date, which is the date and time, and this cannot be null, and also the reference number, and then n varchar. So n varchar is basically stores the information about the numeric as well as the character, so that's why it's n varchar. And then we have reference date, which is the date only I need. We have a date as well as date and time, so you need to make sure which column data type you need to use, because if you use unnecessary, like here we just need a date information. If you are going to store date and time, it's unnecessarily expanding the size of the database if you have a large number of rows. And after reference date we have supplier name. So here we also have n varchar. So by default, if you notice one thing, by default n varchar is 50. So we can just open the bracket and then we can give the value how much we want, but it's not more than like 2500 or 3600 characters. Let me just change this to, yeah, it's maximum we can set it to be 4000, and that's what it is showing a message here. So I will just change this n varchar and this to be 200. Allow null to be false. This is supplier name, and then supplier or customer name. So I will just type this here as sub and cust, which is supplier or customer name, and then city is also I'm going to use to be 100, which is not null. And after that, please bear with me for a few more minutes or a few more seconds. I will just quickly wrap this up. And then 200 item description, I will keep this as a 500 for now, and this cannot be null. And then quantity, this to be decimal. So if in decimal, I want to show you one thing, is because decimal is basically we have 18,0. So this will be helpful if you have an integer data type. So I mean, integer means decimal data type. So I want this to be 18,2 because I want this to be 25.26, 2 digit to be shown after the quantity. This cannot be null. And unit is also about whether this is pieces, whether this is a square feet kind of thing. We need to mention the unit of it, whether it's a bundle, whether it's a roll kind of thing. And varchar, we can also reduce the size of this one, and vehicle reference varchar 50, not null. And after that we have returnable. This also I'm going to use the bit here, or also we can use a boolean here. Let me see if we have the bool here. No, we don't have, so I will use the bit here and then returnable. So what this actually means, right? This can be null. Our reference also vehicle reference, and then we have our reference. So our reference varchar 50, and this can be null. And after that we have returnable. So what does it mean by returnable, right? So basically, when we are sending a good, it is possibility that we are sending it permanently to the customers or suppliers, or it can be a kind of job work which you are going to give them, and then the goods will come back again. So that's a useful information. So if it is a returnable, then we need to track with the supplier or customers when they are going to return the bag of our goods. So that's helpful information here. And here also I want to show you one thing. So here basically what I have mentioned here is basically returnable boolean, whether it is null value and it's yes or no. So here this by default, if the user has not selected any value, then it has to be like non-returnable. If it is returnable, then they have to mention that, right? So here what I will do, if you just go down here, on the column properties, we have data type, value or binding. So what is the default value, right? Sorry, default value or binding. So what is the default value? I'm going to use 0 as a default value for this column. So even though if we don't pass any value from the Power Apps, then by default it's going to pass 0 for this particular column by default every transactions. So that's the beauty of that. So here is a return date. This is also can be null, yes, and after that remarks is also 500. You can add any number, this also null, and after that we have inserted by. So before that I just want to use 3 more columns: security check, date and time. So when they have done that, and then so these are all can be allowed, because the reason is once the user has raised a gate entry system here, then during the first insert it has to insert without the security check, manager approval and the auditor approval. So it has to go to different phases, then only we can send the goods outside of this one. And if it is inward, then we don't need all other information, only the security check and auditor check itself is fine. So because of that only we need to allow null here, and then security check is there, manager check, this is also date and time, and then auditor check. So if you want to add name of the manager, name of the security, there also we can add if we require. So it depends actually. And then finally inserted by, which is who is the user who has inserted this record. So I'm going to use nvarchar for now, either it can be numeric or something else, because if you are going to build an enterprise ERP, then you need to structure this everything in a proper manner, as we are just going the basic application. So I'm not going to cover in depth about the ERP structure for that. If you want to know about how we need to build the enterprise kind of structure for the SQL Server database, please let me know in the comment section below. I will try to make a video on that itself. So this inserted by is basically 200, and then inserted nvarchar is 200, and after that we have inserted on, right? So inserted on. So we also have a timestamp and date and time. So what is the difference between these two is basically date and time is store the date and time information. The timestamp will also store the microsecond informations. So this is a timestamp value here, and I'm setting this to be allow null. That's totally fine to be avoid here, because I want these two information to be stored onto this one. So these are all the things which we need to have while creating this table. Now if I right click on this table, so we have option about save table. So I will click on the save one. You can also click on Ctrl S to save this file. So here I'm going to use gate entry demo1 as a table name, and then click on OK. Now if you click on this one and then refresh it on the top of this one, now you are going to see this newly created table here. If I just drag and drop onto this one, or I can click on to our database and then refresh here, because then only it will populate that the new table is created over there. And then if I click on a new query, it's going to open up a new query. And if you're familiar with the T-SQL statement and everything, then you can easily pick up that. If you don't have, then you at least need a basic information about how you need to fetch the table. It's easy itself at the beginning, but whenever you're going to create a stored procedure, view and everything, then only it becomes complex. So select star from what is the table name which you have created is the gate entry. So the intelligence brought up this one, and then if I click on execute here, so these are the tables, this is the table and these are the columns which we have created. As there is no data available, so there is no information here, and that's it. I have created this database and then a table onto this one. I hope I have shared much more information during the creation of this whole process. Thank you for being with me such a long time of this one. So if you want me to do in-depth video on the SQL Server series, please let me know in the comment section below as well. If you like this video, just click on the big thumbs up button. If you are new to this channel or if you haven't subscribed yet, just click on the subscribe button and also press the bell icon to get the latest notifications. But make sure you turn on the notification on your devices. Share it with your friends and colleagues. If you have any queries and feedback, just post it on the comment section below. Thanks for watching. Keep learning. See you in the next video.